Right. Welcome, guys. It is Sunday evening. we've obviously had a bit happening over the weekend. We've had escalation. All right. We've had Iran. I think I saw they had sent drones over to a US base in Kuwait and a US base somewhere else, but it's left my brain, which happens a lot. Yeah, but obviously now there's two ways of obviously looking at this, and we've got to wait and see how, markets are going to react. All right. Way of looking at it, number one is, oh my God, oil's going to pump, everything's going to pump, yields are going to pump, gold's going to tank, dollar's going to pump, stock market's going to tank. All right. So that's obviously one way that we could look at it. But I think what we got to do is take a step back and actually focus on the negotiations. All right. So I think both parties want to kind of keep this under control. No one wants to get to escalate it. Everyone wants, it to obviously, stay under control. So I do think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how markets react. And what you've got to do is put yourself in a position where, you've got a hedge fund, all right, and you've got 10 million, or sorry, 10 billion quid, all right. After this has happened, are you going to rush to put it somewhere, or are you going to go into protective mode? We already identified last week there's a lot of cash, waiting on the table in my opinions. It's like I've got multiple personalities. Yeah. My opinion is, there's lots of money there ready to be invested, because money hasn't been flowing as, fluidly as it normally does. You've only got to look at how we closed Friday. Stock market massively down, yields down, dollar down, oil down, and then gold 1% up, So it's one of those kind of, weeks last week towards the end where, you weren't really sure where, money was going to, you know, going to come from. That's obviously one thing that we've got to identify before we do anything else, and obviously that's your first job, I guess, when you wake up every morning is, what is money flowing into, and obviously is it risk on, or is it risk off? Risk on means, we're going to be putting, more money is going to be flowing into, the safe haven assets, or risk off is, where it's, open. Normally, stocks will start to, rise, because for those of you who don't know, the big money for all the hedge funds is made from the stock market. It's not made from all of this, gold 100% not. That's obviously a counter, measure. So it's going to be really, really interesting to, see. So just obviously having a bit of a breeze, through how last week played out. Weekly overall dollar, continue to pump up. We did have a little bit of a tail off towards the end where Wednesday we kind of peaked. Thursday equal high. Friday tried to push down. Dollar's very, very, messy, and we can't write off. It is, still strong. All right. Dollar, if you break it down here, is trending to the upside. Yeah. All right. So even if it comes down slightly, you would still class this as an trend. It's only going to be when it probably breaks this area here where we might potentially be thinking, right, price might continue to come down this way. But I actually think the dollar could potentially push higher. I think we might hit 102 this week, but let's wait and see. Yields overall pretty bearish week. However, we obviously had, bit of a slow Monday, Tuesday. Obviously, price pumped up. Wednesday, it got killed off, but then it's not continued to drive down into this area. And obviously, these are all things that we've got to be aware of. For those of you who are completely, new to looking at 10-year yields, that's the big money flowing into the dollar. All right. So that's, think of 10-year yields as big money confidence. We're obviously expecting this to kind of die down, slightly. Yields obviously did pump because of the war, but mainly because it was relatively easy to read, because obviously with oil trending higher, naturally, what is oil priced in? Oil is priced in dollars, so naturally the US dollar was going to pump higher. Stock markets, we got the US 100 weekly wise took a bit of a hit, but I think this was all Friday or Thursday and Friday. Same as the SPX 500 and same as US 30. I think that's still, made another all-time high, which is crazy. US 30 is obviously the top 30 companies, but obviously, yeah, it's just look at that, and obviously this is why they tell you to invest in the stock market because it looks even better than gold right now. If we're looking at gold on a monthly, right, and then we're looking at the stock market. Sorry, it's continuing to make all-time highs, which is crazy, crazy, crazy. So yeah, do I think? Because I've seen Daz has put a he's put a question in here about he's put a question in uh um yeah, Jeremy Grantham reckons there's a crash coming potentially, but I don't know because we obviously don't have great data at the at the moment. Crash is obviously meaning the stock markets. I don't know. Yes, they're very inflated. I don't think there's a crash coming. I think there's a correction coming. However, they are propped up by the AI, market, you know. So um, you know, obviously once AI kind of, levels out, yeah, I do think so. But you know what? Everyone, there was an internet bubble, there was a tech bubble, there's, an AI bubble, housing bubble. It's, like something else will come. I mean, I think really it's going to be space. Um, for anyone who's interested, I did actually buy some last week, but I bought some SpaceX. So if we look where SpaceX is, it IPO'd at 149. We're obviously back down at that area, So I thought, you know what? Why not? I haven't bought a ton, but I did call it. I said obviously wait a week, price will obviously be back down where it started. But I do think, how kind of public Elon Musk is. You've only got to see how he runs Tesla, SpaceX, sorry, not SpaceX, X. I think they've only got to do a public launch and it goes well, and then see this rocket. So yeah, that's obviously one thing to look out for. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through everything and then I'll answer some of these questions. All right. Right, interesting week, coming up here. We've got it starts off relatively quiet. We've got obviously some Aussie speakers, UK speakers. I don't think, this is going to be the talking point of tomorrow. It's going to be how Asia opens, which, no one really, knows. It's how confident the market is that, Trump and Iran can obviously keep this control, because I think if it escalates, now it's going to take a while, and I'm kind of hoping being out here that it doesn't escalate because I want to be able to fly home whenever I want. So yeah, selfishly. Right then, Tuesday we've also got GDP for the pound. The pound's not been performing very well. We got a very dovish Bank of England. So that's wait and see what happens there. We got more speakers, and then we've obviously got some PMI data a bit later on in the afternoon coming from Chicago, as well as consumer confidence. So obviously got pound and US news to look out for there. Wednesday, for anyone who trades the Canadian dollar, obviously Wednesday it's a bank holiday. Japan, not really looking at that. There's some HPI data, PMI data for euro, and then inflation data for euro too. So that'll be quite interesting. If we're probably looking potentially, but I think CPI for the US was down. So, that's obviously what we would be anticipating for Euro. We got loads happening Wednesday. We got loads of speakers this week. We got ADP, non non-farm employment change. That gives us a little bit of an indicator as to non-farm payroll. We got some manufacturing data as well, and we got Walsh speaking. So lots going on. And then we have got Thursday, the big one, non-farm payroll. So the reason it's on Thursday is because it's Independence Day for the US on Friday. So expect obviously, London to be active. I'm pretty sure the gold markets potentially close a bit earlier. I need to look into that, but from memory, I think they close end of London session, which is about 3 p.m. So just watch out for that. So, we'll obviously try and capitalize as much as we can on Friday, morning, and then potentially have a nice early one on Friday afternoon. But naturally, currencies will be open anyway. They'll just be very very slow. So that's obviously what we're looking out for. I think we've got two more days of June. So still got some time to get some profits in there, and obviously then we're moving on to a fresh month from Wednesday. So yeah, let's wait and see how we get on. But June's been good to us. Had a strange, start, but obviously the last two weeks of June, you guys, know our gold trades have been flying. So yeah. Um, Right, let's obviously have a little, chat about, where potentially dollar could open, right? And so I do think Asia's important, all right? So the Asian session tonight, you guys know that I don't trade, Sunday evenings. I've been there, I've done that, I've blown my account years ago, and it isn't, something that I want to really worry about doing again. So I like to watch Asia, and then obviously I'll excuse me. I will utilize that and capitalize on it in the morning. So that's obviously one thing. But the things I'm going to be looking out for here is where obviously dollar is in the morning. I'm gonna if obviously escalation is anticipated, then obviously I'm expecting the dollar to be trading up here. All right. But if not, I'm expecting I probably would still, like it to be trading here, because there's obviously more space for us to take it to the downside. All right. Whereas I think that if dollar ends up, we're obviously coming into London Open tomorrow, and I hope it's not. If the dollar's here, it's a horrible place, for us to trade, because obviously we could go one way or the other. You guys know, we obviously like to document things before London opens, so obviously we can capitalize on that move. Yes, we obviously normally get it right about 80% of the time, but obviously, it's a lot easier if we're closer, or if, trend is a bit more obvious here, because potentially at the moment on a 2 hour time frame, we do have a downtrend here. So this could potentially be the next, leg. However, I actually have got this strange feeling that we're going to be trading and breaking through here, but let's wait and see. So two things to look out for if obviously escalation is gonna happen. All right, yields will be trading higher. Yeah. All right. All right, and so that'll be one thing. They'll open higher, they'll be trading higher. The other one to watch out for is oil. All right, oil should be trading higher. I'm going to mark out this kind of level here. I think if oil breaks above that, straight away during Asia, then we could potentially, see oil creeping back up to this lower level here because about 20 to 30% of the world's oil supply, so 20 to 30% of the world's oil supply comes through the Strait of Hormuz. So if that is closed again, then obviously we've got issues. So let's wait and see. But obviously, yes, that is your area for oil to obviously watch out for. If it gaps up and obviously is trading above here, we could see this 80 level approaching, and obviously then obviously every country is then going to be worried about inflation, so it doesn't matter what they speak about anything, it doesn't matter whatever is happening here, right? It doesn't matter, because if oil is trading higher, anything above probably 75, it's then going to be, it's the worry of it potentially coming out of control, and obviously yeah, then we're just waiting on, speeches or, news coming out about what's happened from Trump or blah, blah, blah. So, those are obviously your main two charts, to obviously identify how market is currently pricing in what potentially, might happen. So that's why on a, Sunday evening, especially recently, it's been, a lot harder, to kind of trade. Um, so yeah, gold, for anyone who, likes gold here, it'll be interesting to see, what's been happening here. Potentially, we've obviously got, a lower, higher low, higher high, potentially. But obviously, if dollar opens up higher, yields open up higher, oil opens up higher, gold should potentially melt down into this area here. Now, if this breaks, right, if this level here breaks, we've got a long, long way to go before we've got, quite a big level of support, which would be somewhere around here. Right, that's a big drop there. We've already dropped from 5,000, say, 600 down to below 4,000, So that's obviously how scary it is. Gold over the last few years has been very, very easy to trade. And obviously, that's why we're plagued on the internet with gold experts. All right. But since probably the beginning of 2024, all you've got to do is tell everyone to buy gold, and you will be a gold expert. Look at it. No pullbacks at all. It's just continued and continued and continued. All right. No pullbacks at all. It's just carried on. So everyone, yeah, we're obviously experts, but this is where the real experts are because it's obviously a lot harder this year than it has been for about 2.5 years. So yeah, but yeah, that's obviously what I'm looking at in regards to gold. Gold. Right, let's answer some of everyone's questions, and then yeah, right. So some people predicting Bitcoin will bottom out by October. Um, Bitcoin is all hype, all right? There's a few questions on Bitcoin here, but Bitcoin is all hype. So let's wait and see. I do see obviously a lot more people starting to kind of speak about it. I actually think Ethereum is potentially not a bad buy. Um, if we look at where it is, it's at 1.5K. If it reaches 4.5K, technically 3x your, money. I don't think that is too bad, over Bitcoin. But yeah, so Bitcoin trading obviously down here. Um, it's just obviously, here we go. I don't know what's going on here. Let me just do this one. So um, yeah, Bitcoin's trading down here. It's, yeah, I just not obviously not really that interested in it. Amir, how did you do on Bitcoin today? I was just messing around trying some strategies out. I think I did about 300 quid. But obviously, what I've noticed on Bitcoin is once you have that heavy drop on a 5 minute, it does tend to come back a bit. So capitalize on that. Heavy drop back a bit, heavy drop, but back a bit. Heavy drop pops up. Heavy drop pops up. So that's all that I was really doing today. But yeah, I don't recommend it. I was a bit bored. I was down by the pool for a few hours, and I yeah thought, you know what, why not? So yeah, on stocks, would you trade the NAS 100? So NAS 100, the Nasdaq is like gold on steroids. So it's moves very very quickly. So just be a bit careful. Daz, the AI bubble's huge. Is it a good time to buy SpaceX? I have. Apparently, this eclipses those. Yes, us SpaceX investors could use a mineral asteroid. Yeah, very, very true. I think anything, launching into, space, they're gonna make quite a big publicity stunt out of it. And I think, a few missions, no one really knows what these missions are doing. So they can kind of make it up. There's a really good book. It's by an author called Dan Brown, and it's called Deception, and it's brilliant. So that's about a presidential race, and basically one of them is pro NASA, one of them's anti, NASA, and the one that's pro, basically, NASA find this, alien. life form under the ocean in the Arctic, and it's about all the conspiracies round it. So if anyone wants a good read, I'd recommend that. It's called The Inception, and it's written by Dan Brown. Greg, so you're not anticipating as easy a week as last week, less predictable. So I'm not going to lie to you. The last 2 weeks have been really, really good. But obviously, yeah, I think this week might potentially be a little bit trickier. But obviously, yeah, let's wait and see, because I don't like, the last couple of months have been hard because it's not, macros, it's not technicals. We've been, dealing with kind of politics, too. So what's Trump saying? You know, what's he gonna tweet? So I think when politics aren't involved in trading, and obviously this has only been recently, probably the last 5 years, where obviously X and Twitter have obviously become a lot more dominant. But obviously, yes, it's definitely, made trading a bit harder. Do we need to be cautious of profit taking near the end of the month? I don't think so, because obviously we've got non-farm payroll on, Thursday. So yeah, I don't think so. I think if it was going to be, Friday. And I haven't, like I was explaining last week, there's been no clear kind of direction of obviously where money is kind of flowing into, and obviously that's why I believe that there's a lot of cash being, sat there on the table, just obviously waiting to be invested into, something. Greg, I know you don't trade oil, but even if there is a slight escalation, oil should push upwards. So oil is the main driver. All right, so I don't know if there'll be enough of a drive to push it up to those previous highs, because I do think that the US and Iran don't want to escalate. I mean, it's bad news for everyone. So yeah. Amir, do you think gold will dump on open or continue up from Friday? This is obviously one thing that we've got to, find out. Um, so yeah, that's obviously one thing that we've got to, find out. But obviously, we're only going to know how, market's going to price it in once market opens. I think potentially it goes up a little, then dumps to 3,800. Again, let's wait and see. Marius, I love Nasdaq. I'm full skilled on trading him. I only, I go only 1 minute trading. I smash him. Well done. You smash him. How to be a member, Rhino, and what are the requirements? Drop the team, message. I'm sure, obviously, everyone here would agree that everyone's pretty happy, right? Yeah, we'll obviously do things like this every single day. My obviously main goal is to make sure that you understand, what you're supposed to be looking at and why, Phil, who is the best to buy SpaceX? Who do you think? Yeah, trading 212s, no problem at all, or any, kind of UK, stock broker. But yeah, trading 212 is easy. So yeah. Right. Does anyone have any more questions? Otherwise, obviously, we'll end it here. This obviously will be recorded. Yeah. Amir, when you releasing your two, bro? your tool. So I'm probably gonna try it out. I'm gonna try it out. So this is it here. I'm gonna try it out this week. Make sure, and then yeah, we'll wait and see what happens here. But yeah, it should be ready. I should be completely ready, I reckon, by the end of this week. So I want to give it a proper, stress test. So because all I've been able to do is, to obviously test it, at the weekends. But this will give you London, New York, Asia, the proper, how I do, macro outlook. This will give you obviously that, that outlook. So yeah, like for example, here it's telling you to be cautious on gold, pound, euro, and USD which I agree on. We've also got NFP squeeze, USD JPY intervention. Lots of things happening. Geopolitical talks. This has actually changed from high to medium. So yeah, and obviously I've made breakdown and everything, so yeah, let's wait and see. But right, guys, have a great evening. I know it's only like 8:30, so have a great evening. And yeah, let's smash it. And obviously, yeah, if you're new, there's a big blue button in the channel, so drop the team a message, and yeah, that'll obviously help you. But no. So I'll be documenting my trades from 6:30 in the morning, and then I'll be live with you guys at 8. So yeah, let's wait and see how market opens, and let's smash it. Let's smash it. Have a good one, team. Have a good one.